All right, welcome back to Touchline Talks with us, the 90th Minute Hooligans, for some more culture, chaos, and soccer. We've got Lucas, myself, Luis, and we have a very special guest today. We are joined by Ryan, more widely known as Ulysses Chant, a leader with the American Outlaws, the biggest supporter movement behind the U.S. men's national soccer team. We're talking World Cup atmosphere, what it's been like inside of these stadiums, the growth of soccer in America, and what needs to happen next if this country truly wants to become a soccer nation. And of course, we're going to stir the pot a little bit because it wouldn't be the 90th Minute Hooligans without a little bit of chaos. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Welcome to Touchline Talks. No tactics, no filters, just soccer and some hooligans.
So Ryan, welcome to the channel. We are glad to have you with us here today. How are you feeling?
I feel great. This is coming off of a wonderful knockout round match in San Francisco where, I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to get into it, but that was an atmosphere unlike anything we had experienced. I've been following this team since I was a kid. 94 World Cup was my entrance into the team when my stepfather took me to a match in Orlando. And ever since then, I've been just a rabid fan of the United States national team. And the way that we fought back, and we didn't just park the bus and just hope for, extra time or hope for, that we can prevent a goal. We actually kept attacking. That mentality, you're starting to see this golden generation grow up, and you're starting to see the entire nation fall in love with what we fell in love with, right? That grit, that determination, that hustle, that desire, but now they've got the technical skills behind it. And it's wild to see. And for a fan base and for a supporter culture that hasn't had a lot to believe in, maybe since we ousted Mexico two years in a row in the Nations League, it's a welcome feeling. So I'm feeling good. I'm riding this high, and we're back in Seattle, so it's gonna be nuts.
I mean, to be at Lumen Field in one of the most electric atmospheres in the whole U.S. and, to see the U.S. fight, like you said, Balogun getting his red card, the USA still fighting, getting their second goal by Malik Tillman, Pochettino being so excited for him and for the team and that atmosphere, that culture. It just seems like the U.S. men's team has a culture and a bond that they didn't have before. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's interesting because, this is maybe a hot take, but I enjoyed Greg as a person. Does that make sense? He was always a good person. If you watch the behind the scenes videos, he seems like a good father. And maybe that's what they needed at the time, because a lot of those players, they were 18, 19, 20, 21. They're mature now. But you saw the glimpse of what we're seeing now. We saw under BJ Callahan, right? When he was interim, and that, for those who are brand new to, there's an entire story and a history of how we got to where we are. Yeah. But the way that they're playing with that fire, that passion, that, Weston McKennie shirt ripped off, kissing the crest type of, swagger. We haven't seen that. We didn't see that when Greg came back. And then after, we flamed out of Copa, we knew a change had to be made. And leading into this World Cup, I think there was a lot of trepidation based on results that we had under Pochettino. And, certainly the couple warm-up matches in March in Atlanta, we were like a little nervous. We weren't sure how this was going to happen. So, I mean, this has exceeded, I think, all of our wildest expectations. And just as someone who's been in the trenches over the last 2 decades, it's really cool to see the country fall back in love with U.S. soccer.
I think the U.S. is living their best moment to grow their fan base, because they're playing a beautiful soccer. I'm loving watching the U.S. play in the World Cup. Yeah, believe me or not, I never thought I would say that, but
listen, as a Brazilian, as a husband to a Brazilian who's been to Minas Gerais, every person that I was introduced to in my wife's family, they were like, "You watch U.S. soccer? Why? They're so bad. I don't understand. Why do you torture yourself? And I was like, I don't know. It's just what I do. But yeah, no, it's great to see the rest of the world kind of fall back in love with the players. And I think it has a lot to do with like you said, the culture, the setting the tone, the why so many of us who were introduced to the sport through the national team, we were never the best. We knew we weren't going to necessarily win the World Cup, but we were going to out hustle you. We weren't going to take dives. We were going to play the sport the right way. In our minds, it's the American way. And to now, like you said, to pair that with some skills that make it beautiful, building out of the back and some of the touches that you see, that Balogun goal, like letting the through, like, I mean, we've never seen this before. This is incredible on the world stage, maybe in a friendly versus, Grenada or something like that, but never against, Eastern European team.
No, absolutely. I think it's huge, and to see these kids grow up. I mean, that's what we're really seeing is the team mature, and you talked about it a little bit, Ryan. When it came to those warm up games, and not knowing what it was going to be like going into the World Cup. And I know we first got our introduction here in Charlotte when the U.S. played Senegal in one of their final games leading up to the World Cup, and I got to do a quick interview with Logan, who I know is with you as well, who's also a huge part of the American Outlaws. So tell the viewers, where are you right now? What's kind of been your road at the World Cup?
Yeah, so I'm currently just outside of Oregon State University. So my road to the World Cup, like a lot of Americans, has been fly in, fly out. I travel for work and I have an American Airlines credit card. So I sold my soul to American Airlines years ago, strictly because I knew we'd be holding the World Cup here. And so I've been doing everything on points. So I've been flying in usually the day before, then flying back home and then flying out. I think I did spend some, like after Seattle, I flew directly to LA and spent some time in LA because I was doing some logistics coordinating of bringing in some additional fanfare. Like I reached out to like UCLA, USC. There's been a lot of like talk around bringing college atmosphere. So I was like, all right, well, listen, if college atmosphere is what you want, I got you. So we ended up, finding a local marching band. USC and UCLA, obviously they're in summer camps, or they're in summer, so they're not there. But we ended up getting a local marching band, and they played with us, and it was like an incredible atmosphere. Like all the atmospheres have been like unique and different, even though we've gone back to the same cities. But Logan and Phil specifically are the ones that are driving all the drums, all the smoke, all the big ass American flag. I don't know if I can curse here, but big ass American flag that we hoist over our heads. The smoke that you see us walking into the stadium with. Ever since Chicago, that the next day after they won, after we played Germany, they drove all the way to Santa Monica, LA. Then after the match, they drove to Seattle, then back to LA, and then to San Francisco. And I had my ticket. I had a first class ticket to Seattle, through points on Alaska. And they were like, hey, we have extra room in the AO SUV. And I was like, I can't turn this down. I mean, these guys have been at it. I mean, the thing is, I don't know if you've ever gone on a road trip or joined a road trip, like 3/4 of the way done, but like, these boys are like their minds have melded together. They don't even talk. They just like correspond in like gestures and head nods. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm not part of this inside track. So it's cool. So yeah, so we're on the road trip. So I hopped in. We spent the night. We drove. This is the easy leg. We drove up to Corvallis, where Oregon State University is. We watched the Argentina Capo Verde match, and then Colombia versus Ghana. So, and then we'll mosey up Sunday morning up to Seattle.
That's awesome, man. I mean, just the dedication, of course, Logan and Phil, and getting to meet them in Charlotte as well. And I've gotten a chance to kind of peek at Phil's Instagram to see that ride and see every step of the way. Being especially that we created this channel to bring more soccer awareness to more Americans. Lucas and I and the rest of us here, the 90th Minute Hooligans, we're more of the players turned to fans, and so to be more involved on the fan side has actually been really cool and fun to be a part of, especially knowing the game as well as we do. So to see that journey that Logan and Phil have made, and now for you to tag along and be like, you know what? I'm gonna get rid of this first class ticket. I'm just gonna ride along. Let's have some fun. It's so cool. It brings your childhood side out, right? It's like I'm a kid again.
It's what drew me to traveling for U.S. soccer to begin with, because I love traveling. And, if anyone, like, if you want to pair your sports addiction to traveling, fall in love with an international team, because this is you get the best of both worlds. And what we got in Qatar in the last World Cup was vastly different than what we're seeing now. Obviously, we're a large country. There's a lot of drive time or flight time that you have to do. Whereas in Qatar, you'd wake up and you'd take a free bus or a free subway to one game in the morning and then another game at night, So if you were a fan of the sport, you loved it. This one's radically different. Phil and Logan have gone through cities and towns that they never would have otherwise gone through. So they've really seen a part of the country. I saw some beautiful, we took the scenic route up Oregon yesterday. Amazing landscape. We didn't have any cell service for at least a couple hours. That's what you want. You want the story. The stories, the games, obviously they matter, but to be a supporter for U.S. soccer and you follow them through a major tournament like this, it's the stories that develop outside the pitch, right? Yeah. And so as former players, I think the thing that you'll start to see as you start to get more into this fandom and you start to travel and you start to see that is that community built around it. The stories that come out of it, like the Phil and Logan driving, or the atmosphere that you're building beforehand. And a lot of the stuff, like Americans, we just expect for us to show up to a night before party and everything be organized. Or, hey, we expect that, this march is going to be organized. And a lot of the times we're flying by the seat of our pants. We're not sure if this is going to work out or not. And then it does. And you're like, that was great. It was the greatest thing ever. We had organized the march in Seattle. We had obviously communicated with the fire department and the police department, and we had it was on Juneteenth, and we had reached out to some historical reenactors of the Buffalo Soldiers during the 1800s. Yeah, 1800s. And so they led the charge on horseback. They led the march. But there were so many people fired up that when we went from the stairs where we were doing the pregame hype into the road, even though we had police trying to keep people away from us, it was total chaos. It was organized chaos. I don't know how no one got trampled or everyone made it safe through that, because there were people just joining from everywhere. And that, if you saw the videos and you saw the pictures, there were over 10,000 people marching with us. And we had no idea how this was going to go. There was 4 or 5 different subcultures in that parade that were going on. So, yeah. And all of that is volunteer led. None of that is organized by U.S. Soccer. All of that is done by myself, a handful of others, within the AO leadership. And somehow it just keeps working. So, knock on wood, tomorrow or Monday will be even better. We've got some more things planned. We got the AOK to do smoke this time. Nice. So hopefully no one gets burned. We've got some VIPs coming. We think we've got a plan to keep them kind of, the band and the VIPs kind of all together, without people swarming on them. Yeah. But who knows? It's going to be wild. But those are the stories you tell, right? Absolutely. Those are the march in the 45-minute march from the Harbor Steps to Seattle Stadium. It's going to be incredible.
No, it's going to be awesome. And just seeing the videos from the first time there, Seattle, and look, we see videos of all these different teams and their fan groups, whether it be the Netherlands, the Orange, or whether it be Brazil taking over New York. You saw that, right, Lucas? How Brazil took over New York. And Lucas, I want to ask you, from your perspective, being Brazilian, born and raised, and spending your time here in the U.S. playing soccer, going back to Brazil now, what has it been like seeing that transition, or even seeing the videos and the fans and the game now for the U.S. as it was maybe in the past?
Yeah, I think that's the best part, to see the fan base growing, because that's what's gonna make the U.S. become a soccer country as well. It's the fans, that the love for the game that's gonna make the U.S. grow as a team, and as a soccer coacher as well. So that's what's gonna make them a power in the future, I believe.
Yeah, and that's what we see, right, with Brazil. And you talk about organized chaos, Ryan, and I know in Brazil it's like there's no thought. It's like, hey, Brazil's playing, we're going. It doesn't matter what it is, everything stopped, we're watching. And hopefully the U.S. is starting to get to that point where it's like, man, the U.S. men's national team's playing. That's the focus, right? Just like
Right.
we're a Super Bowl, right?
Exactly. And we know that every World Cup, there's casuals that come into the fold and come into the mix and rediscover U.S. soccer for the first time again, and then they don't stick around. But there are certain inflection points in our country, right, when it comes to this sport. The first one I truly believe was 1990, right, when we qualified again, and then 94 when we hosted. And that led to the formation of MLS 1.0, whatever you want to call it, that stabilized it in 24, or that created, the league, but it was floundering for a while. In 2014, you saw this excitement. Speaking of Brazil, the US had a great run in Brazil, right? Group of death, but that was really when American Outlaws peaked, in my opinion. Like, everyone was behind it. That they were the only supporter group really in town, and the love of that team, that culture that they had, combined with some of the results that you were seeing on the team, there was an excitement around the sport again. And you started seeing the MLS grow and stabilize. Teams like Orlando City, who I follow, who I'm a supporter of, come into the mix. Sounders, Portland. So all these teams started, joining the league, and MLS kind of grew. In 2018, there was the failure of not qualifying for Russia, and a lot of people checked out. Then we had the 2 years later, we had the pandemic, and a lot of people just stopped caring, right? And so, being someone who has been part of the American Outlaws in this movement since 2011, I think, is when I first officially signed up. To see the numbers kind of decline and the watch parties kind of decline, because you could actually watch games now on your television, so you don't have to go to the bar. I was like, hey, let's get back to basics, right? What do people enjoy? What's the best thing about joining American Outlaws, or what brought you to supporting U.S. soccer? And I think it's threefold. It all comes down to community, right? So what are you doing at the night befores, like, to welcome people coming in who are traveling? What's the pre-match experience like, the tailgates? What are some of the traditions? Like, there's a free match day poster that's designed by a local artist, or we have an in-house artist now, but she's out of Orlando. And she designs a unique game day poster. It's like a concert poster, right? If you like that kind of stuff, and so you get something collectible. And then finally, the match day experience, like that march to the match, the chants, the in-game atmosphere. That we had to get that right. And then everything else we knew would fall into place. And so we've been at this kind of underground. No one's been paying us attention for years, right? Even when we're beating Mexico, because of the whole Greg situation after 2022 World Cup, which I think was exciting, but it was also during football season. It was during NFL, so there weren't a lot of casuals. If you were a diehard soccer supporter, you were watching the 22 World Cup. But if you weren't, you didn't really check in, because there was a lot of controversy and stuff like that. But for those who followed it, it was great. So we didn't really have the bump that we had in 2014. But this time, on our home soil, all of a sudden you had, and now we're in the influencer age, right, of social media. and I mean this, like, and that's why I reach out to you. I was like, you guys, I think, do it the right way. You're getting an honest assessment. You're actually talking to the people that do. You're versus a 15-second out of context clip, and then roasting it, and then just doing it for clickbait, or just doing it for clicks, right? Because that's what the algorithm incentivizes. So what you started to see is a lot of eyeballs, and they were like, oh my God, like, we don't look like Brazil. Look at Brazil. Brazil does it so much better. Argentina does it so much better. Bosnia does it so much better. Our chants suck. And like, I equate that to, there was an insecurity in American culture when it comes to soccer, because we're not used to not being the best at something as Americans. And I feel like that's that's something that we need to get over ourselves with, right? And get back to like that 1980 Miracle on Ice, or even the Olympics that just happened, right? There, where we're gonna work as hard as we can to be the best. And so ever since that first game in LA or in Charlotte, where I mean, you did you march with us in Charlotte?
Yeah, I marched with you guys. Yeah,
We had the Charlotte
the
Panthers marching band. You know,
Yeah.
their drum line came out. They were like, "Hey, can we join you guys?" We're like, "Absolutely, the more the merrier." And that march was great. Remember, underneath the overpass,
Oh yeah.
and like I mean, it was loud. We were doing vamos. It was wild. And then, you know, it was a good 1.5 mile march. We weren't quite match fit, right? And we were going to the security line, and some people were doing, you know, kind of a mid-level "We Love You" chant. And that's the clip that made that went viral, right? And you were like, why you didn't just see what we did 5 minutes ago? Like, so again, that became the narrative, but now you're starting to see, and the wins help, don't get me wrong, but you're starting to see people understand that we do things a little bit differently. We do things American-wise, and we're not making any apologies for who we are. This is our culture. Whether you think it's cringe, whether you think it's the greatest thing ever, regardless, we're going to be ourselves. And if you want to be part of that, we want you to get on board. And so there's things that we can always improve upon. But at the end of the day, are we doing things positively in a way that matters to the team? And I saw it firsthand every match that we've been at, from LA when we defeated 4-1 Paraguay, to the Seattle experience, to LA game 2, even in that loss against Turkey. The march to the stadium was one of the best environments we had. I mean, we played neck. People have wanted us to play neck for a while, so we played neck. And people are like, hey, this is who we are. And we're developing new chants. We've had some chants go viral. The Balogun chant went viral. You know, he scores with his, you know, nether region. He scores.
You can say it.
Okay, I can say it.
Chaos,
Okay, Christian Pulisic scores with his dick chant. That went viral. We you know, we went on the James Corden show, and we did one for, you know, about Landon Donovan's hair, because we were playing Turkey, right?
Yeah,
so, I mean,
yeah.
we're just being ridiculous with it. But like, people are now starting to, like, those people who started off hating us, I think, have come around and been like, hey, this is amazing. And we were 30 minutes after the game in San Francisco in the concourse, just drumming, going through chants. And like, you don't see stuff like that. Or previously, you only saw like Brazil or Argentina, or England, right? Or Scotland, the Tartan Army, doing stuff like that. And you're like, hey, you know, we're not trying to copy them, but we do things in our way. And I think that's unique, and I think that's really cool. And if you're interested in it, I highly recommend coming out and doing it.
Yeah, I think it's great, the fact that it's building and growing so much. And I know one of our guys, Harvey, that's part of our group here, the 90th Minute Hooligans. He said it from the beginning, before the World Cup even started, that one of the biggest things that has to happen in U.S. soccer is the winning part, like you said. He's like, because we are so good at so many things, at so many sports. You think about the Olympics, you think about football, you think about basketball, you think about every sport, everything just has a world power, right? The United States does everything great, and they always get behind winners. So now, like you said, now that they're starting to win and they're starting to show, now it has to be that unity between the fans and the winning. But it has to happen, you know, in Spanish, they say en las buenas y en las malas, and in the good times and the bad. It can't just be in the good times, right? And that's what's going to be a big difference. But talking about the chants, Ryan, let's talk about your name, right?
Sure.
We see, you know, Ulysses Chant is your alter ego, of course, and you know, for people who don't know, who is Ulysses Chant? How did you become one of the leaders of the American Outlaws? And of course, tell us about the play on the name, you know, Ulysses.
Yeah, so I think Ulysses S Chant is the official stage name, or whatever you want to give it a call. But for me, I run the drum line, right, of American Outlaws, and part of our silly culture is being as ridiculous and over the top in our outfits. And again, if you don't want to dress ridiculous, no one cares. Dress whatever your comfort level is. But for me, after the pandemic, I grew a beard, and I was like, what could I use? What piece of American folklore or whatnot could I dress as? And I settled on Ulysses S. Grant. And the reason being is, he enjoyed a little bit of the alcohol. But then he cleaned up his act, and he basically saved the country during the Civil War. The phrase of unconditional surrender comes from Ulysses S. Grant. He basically kept the Union together, and was just an overall a pretty good dude. And I thought to myself, what could I embody that same level of spirit, and then also have a game day outfit that when I put it on, I become this person that's going to feel comfortable standing in front of 10,000 people, banging a drum, getting people excited. I lead the boom boom clap, in front of the stadium, and you have to have a certain level of comfort. And me, just Ryan Shirah, I don't know if I would be as willing to do it if I was out of character, I guess. When I'm in character, it's like wearing a mask. No one really knows who I am, right? Nobody knows, right? It's like a superhero, right? It's so that to me is why I do it. And then also when people go to matches, hopefully they're like, oh, there's that Ulysses S. Chant guy or Grant guy. I'm going to go say hi to him, right? And so I've met so many people that might otherwise be afraid or not want to. So that's why I do it. But yeah, so the Ulysses S. Grant is the character. And then I was like, how do I do it? How do I soccerify it, or US soccerify it? So Chant kind of rhymes with Grant, and then I bang the drums and come up with new chants. So that's what we do.
No, that's awesome, man. I love the play on the name. So up to this point, you said earlier you've been with the Outlaws now since 2011. That's when you really initiated yourself into that supporters organization. Up to this point in time, how many games have you attended?
Geez. Let me check. I keep track of it on Footballogy. I believe I'm up to 109 or 110 men's games.
Wow.
Let's see here. All my clubs. Yeah. USA. I am at 111. Sorry, 111 US men's games. So Seattle will be 112.
That's
and
great.
Then I think I've done about 20 some odd women's games, which feels lower. I feel like I've done more. But yeah. So my wife said, listen, you travel for work, you travel for US Soccer. Before, when you were single, I could do whatever I want. Now that I'm married, she's like, pick a team. And I'm like, well, baby, the women are better than the men. Like they actually win. I've tortured myself going to all these men's games. But she wants, she's like, you can go to like the important women games.
There you go.
That's why my number is a little lower on the women's side.
Lucas, imagine going to 112 Brazil matches, bro. You're slacking. You're slacking, dude. You're not a real Brazil fan. So you talked about club as well. Where's home base for you, Ryan?
Yeah, home base is Florida for me. So I grew up in and around Orlando, and now live an hour east in just north of Daytona. So I'm an Orlando City guy. I've followed Orlando City since they moved from Austin in the USL Pro days. At the time that they moved to Orlando and were just starting to form, I accepted a position and moved out to Phoenix. And I was there for 10 years. And I was part of the USL Phoenix Rising out there. So I have two, American teams that I still follow. Obviously, Orlando City being my number one, but I still casually follow Phoenix Rising, as I was kind of part of that formation of that supporter culture as well, as they came into the league. But yeah, this is my first year drumming with Orlando City. And for me, in my opinion, what I want to happen, you talked about how do we maintain this excitement. Certainly the national team sets the tone, but I want all these folks who are falling in love with the sport now to fall in love with their local club and community teams. There's I mean, the explosion after 2014, we didn't have this. Like, we're in a scenario now where you can go and support your local team or a team that's close by, where we didn't have that when I was a kid. So it's so cool. And Orlando City, I think there's a Twitter war happening right now where some dude wrote something like MLS is inferior to Premier League and all that nonsense. And I was like, don't come to Orlando with that that talking that shit, man. Like, we don't fuck around in Orlando. You don't think that the community is behind our team? Come to a match and see.
Right.
The drum line that we have in Orlando City. I mean, my skills are shit compared to theirs. They're so much better. They made me a better drummer. But that's the level of intensity, the going the full 90, the just going crazy and being unapologetic for who you are. If you come to an Orlando match, I mean, some of the chants that we do are awesome. And I've co-opted a lot of them to come to US. But they're authentically who they are, and they don't make excuses for that. And that's that energy, and that's that bite that as Americans, I try to inflect on, in my role of, we're going to stand for 90. We're going to chant for 90. We're not going to stop the vibes in the stadium. And, we're going to get a little spicy at times.
Yeah.
So,
and,
yeah.
It's I love that you say that even after the World Cup, and we'll get into that a little bit later, it's definitely finding a support in your local team. It's crazy. Two of our guys, Kalon and Harvey, are Orlando City guys. They live in Orlando. My first MLS game ever was actually it was Orlando City back in, I think it was maybe like 2015 or something like that. Or
Citrus Bowl?
Yeah, it's Citrus Bowl. Yep, that's exactly where it was. So before they got their new stadium, right? And so that was like my introduction to the MLS. Then when I moved to Atlanta, I would go and support Atlanta United, and now I live in Charlotte. Now I'm a diehard Charlotte fan. So, and I think it's so important. I think about Lucas when I think about that, because going to his wedding was probably one of the most standout parts of having that diehard connection to a club. During his wedding, his wedding day, his team had their most important match of the year, which is the home match, right? Cruzeiro versus Atlético Mineiro, Galo versus Cruzeiro, right? And the amount of people, including Lucas, who were just in tune with that game, even during the wedding, right? The reception was going on, everybody was partying, but they had their phones out and they're yelling, they're throwing things, they're going, because this year Atlético Mineiro was not as good as Cruzeiro, but Atlético won. Lucas, tell us where does that come from? That diehard feel, like you guys bleed, absolutely bleed for your local club teams. Don't forget U.S. men's national team, forget Brazil, club team. What makes that so in tune, Lucas?
I feel like it's just the culture. Like whenever I have a baby, his first clothes are gonna be Atletico's clothes. I'm not gonna put. He's gonna get out of the hospital with the Atletico's jersey. That's like it's gonna be. It's in our blood. It's like it's our culture. It's who we are.
I was going to say I think the biggest comparison, or the most on target comparison with that, is college football in America. I grew up in the South. I went to the University of Florida. In the South, SEC football is a religion, right? Imagine, if you will, there was a, and I guess you could call it the NFL, but like, imagine if there was a national, an amateur style Olympics where the U.S. had a football team and we played against the world, but they picked from the different colleges. Certainly, we would support U.S. college, U.S. amateur football, but we would, at the end of the day, be Gator fans or Ohio State fans or whoever, because there's that connection to your school, to your community, to the state, to the city that you grew up in. So that is when I see that in other countries like Brazil or overseas in Europe, that's where it kind of makes sense to me. And so what we're trying to do here is the inverse in America, where most of us got into the sport through the national team. We did it backwards here versus the club, right? Our national team helped build the club. And now that we have the infrastructure, it's how do we how do we use the infrastructure that we've built through the USL and MLS to make the support for the national team even bigger, right? And so I think there's a symbiotic relationship there, and you're starting to see it. I think as I venture around and I go to every city, because it's a traveling circus, right? It's not like other countries where they have a national stadium that they play in every time the national team is in country. We go from city to city, right? In Orlando, we're undefeated, right? We've never lost at Orlando at Ernco Stadium. So that's a fortress. I want as many games in Orlando, but I know that's never going to happen. So we travel to Austin, to Harrison, to Dallas, to LA. So every city that you go to, it's not going to be the same people, but you can pull from that supporter base that lives in that city. So I'm always on the phone and I'm reaching out to the drum lines in the cities that, root for or are there for STL matches, like in St. Louis City. I happen to think that the Orlando City Drumline's probably one of the best, if not the best, in MLS. Cincinnati might, argue with me on that. I love my men and women in Cincinnati, but being able to go into a city where I know the U.S. men's or women's team is going and being able to pull from those local supporter groups is incredibly important to maintaining what I said was the basics, that pregame atmosphere, that in-game atmosphere. In Cincinnati, they had never hosted, this is going back to the qualifiers in 2022. Cincinnati, brand new team, well, in MLS, they had the USL, but they had never hosted a match before, and they got USA Mexico. And it was almost a slap in the face because Columbus, right down the street or down the highway, that was where USA played Mexico. But we had lost in 2016. So kind of the aura was gone a little bit. So they were like, let's put this in a TQL stadium, bigger stadium, and let's see what Cincy does. And I tell you what, it was one of the best atmospheres I've ever experienced, marching through the brewery district over the Rhine into TQL Stadium. So now every time I go to Cincinnati with the U.S. men's national team, that atmosphere that they bring for their local club transfers over to the national team. And so there you're starting to see that, which I don't know, Lucas, is that unique to us? I mean, because I know the women just played 2 matches in Brazil. Obviously, we got the Women's World Cup in Brazil next year, which I think I convinced the wife to go on. But like, is that the same support and the same people that come out and support like Cruzeiro or Atletico? I mean, does that transfer over to the national team? What's that relationship like?
Yeah, I feel like it's the only time that we get along, me and my friends that support Cruzeiro.
Got it.
Sure. the only time we get along is to support Brazil. That's the only time we're gonna watch a soccer game together,
And it's a little different here in the States because we have such a diaspora of multiple cultures, right? So you, like in Orlando, we have huge contingencies of multiple, fans and supporters of different countries, right? So when it comes to the men's, they may be wearing Panama shirts or they may be wearing Brazilian shirts, right? They may not want to root for the U.S. They root for the women, right? When the women come to town, but when the men come, they might wear, and I think that's unique to U.S. soccer supporter culture, where even though we support the same club, we may support different national teams. Whereas in Brazil, I support different clubs, but we all support the same national team. And so that's and I don't think that people talk about that enough. And that a lot of the casuals are like, well, why don't we ever have enough support here? And I was like, well, no, the people who cared about the sport usually were first or second generation immigrants to our country, where in their country, soccer was was what Lucas described.
I feel like that's the winning culture that you said. The U.S. is used to being the best in everything. So soccer, they're growing right now. So like they're having their best living their best moments. So I feel like that's the best part about this World Cup is because you're gonna grow your fans. So.
Right. but it's like, how do we maintain that level of support when we're not winning, to your point? And I think it all comes down to community, that local connection, and understanding that there's going to be times like Germany's won the World Cup 4 times, 5 times, 4 times,
4 times. Yep.
4 times. And they've just been ousted.
We are the only one that have 5, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. My wife will remind me of that as well. She's like, you see these 5 stars? I was like, yeah, I see them. But we have to be okay with the times and the cycles that we're not the best, but we have to keep reloading, right? We have to keep that level of support no matter what. And that's kind of like where American Outlaws got its name from. We weren't trying to be scary or intimidating. We really were the outlaw. Like, no one cared about us in American sporting culture, right? In 2007, when it started in Lincoln, Nebraska, another college town, there were no bars that you could turn on the television, or if you asked someone to turn on U.S. soccer, they would laugh in your face and be like, why do you want to watch that? No, of course not. We're going to throw on Nebraska football. So, to still have that diehard level of support, even in the bad times, is kind of what we're used to, right? We're not used to all this winning and all this, the level of success that we're experiencing right now. So how do we bottle that? How do we transform that into the club scene, and then maintain that level of excitement as we build towards 2030? I think it's going to be an interesting exercise. And folks like myself, I mean, I'm in my mid 40s now. I've been at this since my early 20s. What my goal is here is to inspire that next generation, like yourselves, and a lot of the people that I met in this World Cup. Take over, please. I can't keep doing this forever. Like, I'm on Centrum Silvers now. It's me and Kobe Jones. We're popping those multivitamins before the matches.
That's hilarious. And look, Ryan, I mean, I think, you talked about it a little bit, and look, our background, a lot of us being international background, especially us, whether it be Lucas, Brazil, Harvey and Kaylon, Jamaica, Jay, myself, Mexican, Chilean, Americans.
Yep.
We all grew up with families and international cultures that we understood what it was to have this environment and to be a part of it, which is what brings to a lot of the local teams. It's a lot of immigrants that are the supporter groups, right?
Yep.
For you, living in a country where soccer is not the number one sport, what caused you to be such an avid soccer and U.S. men's national supporter?
In 94, the Orlando hosted, it was one of the host cities. And my father took me to the Citrus Bowl. And at the time, I mean, it was not the Citrus Bowl. People shit on the Citrus Bowl now. You should have seen it in 94, in the mid 90s. I mean, it was all metal bleachers, but the beer, I'm sure, was probably like $2, right? So, I mean, there's some trade-offs, right? But it was a Mexico versus Ireland match. And I was 12 at the time. So, I remember the atmosphere being something unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. A lot of pasty white Irishmen with farmer tans that had been drinking out at Church Street Station all day. And the Mexican supporters, obviously the wave was going crazy. But they were also, I felt so bad for the Irish because it was so hot. I think the on-field temperature that day was like 102. And there was no hydration breaks back then. But I do remember, and this might be one of those Berenstein Bears moments, but I remember as a kid them throwing out water bags. Was that a thing? Do you guys remember? And then you would pick up a water bag and then drink the water out of it.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, you would bite into it
you'd bite into it and drink the water as you go because there were no hydration breaks. And so I remember being in the 400 section asking my dad, I was like, what are they throwing out there? He's like, I think they're water. And then you didn't see the Mexican players do it. But you did see the Irish players do it. But I think we ended up leaving at around the 80th minute because it was so hot. And it was and I think that game ended like in a 1-0 Mexican victory. But the fans and the pageantry around it was unlike anything we had experienced before, right? I mean, in the modern generation, and So that was my entry point. And then FIFA, the video game, right? That was what we had. And that I would buy every edition of FIFA. And in 2002, I had just graduated college and I was working out at Disney and Universal Studios. I was a stilt walker and character at Disney, and then I would bartend at night. And we were playing in the Japan Korea World Cup, and I would get off of work and I would go sit at the Miller's Ale House by myself in a corner and watch U.S. soccer. And I mean, I was the only one rooting for U.S. And then I eventually found a group of like-minded individuals, and I would organize watch parties. I was like, hey, let's go to the bar, let's watch U.S. soccer. And then when I moved out to Arizona, I needed a way to make adult friends. So I joined the local chapter. And, you know, just as when you join any kind of group or community, for me, I get excitement. What makes me happy is when I'm volunteering or I'm doing stuff, right? I'm making a difference.
Yeah.
And be the change you want, right? So I'm like, I think we should be doing this, and I'll do it for us. And so we hosted a few matches out in Phoenix. They needed drummers, and I didn't grow up in band. I grew up playing sports. I was a baseball player. And so for me, I was like, this is something that I can give back to the community and build that culture that I want to see. And my first USA match that I ever went to, I looked over and I saw, oh, that's those supporters going crazy. I want to be over there. And so I bought a drum off of Craigslist. I taught myself how to drum, and now I've been doing it ever since. And so when people complain about anything, right, and the internet is that's, we've incentivized complaining. If you really want to change the culture in anything, or you want to be the difference, you got to get out there and you do it. You can't expect someone else to do it for you. And so that's what we've been doing. That's what I've tried to do is how can we get better? What we've been doing for the World Cup is, so every supporter group, this is a little behind the scenes, every supporter group, obviously, there's a lot of controversy around this World Cup because the ticket prices were insane, and they're still insane. And I think it was absolutely the wrong message. And I think it's going to be even worse because it's been such a success. So we're feeding the beast. But how great would it have been to have, even if it was only $566 tickets, which I know FIFA can afford a lot more, but why not put those in the lower bowl section like Qatar did?
Yeah.
Right. Qatar said, we're going to put the supporters behind in this one, we're going to put tier 1. So the most expensive tickets behind the goal. So those are all the friends and family of the players, the corporate sponsors, the people who spend $10,000 a year to be U.S. soccer insiders. Those are not your rabid supporters, right? Those are not the ones that are going to be crazy. Thank God we're winning. We're up in the 300 sections, right? I think in San Francisco, we were in the 200 sections. That was the closest we've been so far. We're back in the 300s for Seattle, where we were for the first game. But at the end of the day, we're going to keep bringing that level of support and that noise and that ruckus. But we had U.S. Soccer said, we're going to give each of there's 3 main supporter groups that unofficially are U.S. Soccer. You have the American Outlaws, we're the largest. We have 30,000 members. You have Barra 76, which is more of that South American Latino culture vibe. And then you have the Sammers, which is like older Sam's Army folks and they're amazing. They take their shirts off and they just want to drink Fireball shots. And like, everyone's good vibes. But each supporter group, U.S. Soccer said, we're going to give you access to these $66 tickets. You get 10 of them, guaranteed. You have to pay for them, but you get 10. And at first we were like, well, guys, we're 20,000, 30,000 members. Like, we're getting 10 that we can. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use those 10 tickets that we have access to, and those are going to be for the capos and the drums, right? So every city I go to, Phil and Logan, they're carrying the drums. We're going to have, I'll be the one that goes to all the matches. I had to pay for my tickets, but we're going to recruit the local drummers from each city. So LA, I've got my LA drummers. And when I go to San Francisco, I have my San Francisco drummers. And these are guys and girls that have drummed with us throughout the last 10, 15 years. And they're so appreciative of the fact that they now get the drum in the World Cup when it comes to their city. And I think that's a unique thing that we've tried to do to maintain that level of atmosphere and local community. And then at the same time, recruit some of these local bands. Like in San Jose, I reached out to San Jose State University,
Nice.
and they marched with us to the stadium. And in LA, we had the LA marching band. In Seattle, I reached out to the University of Washington, and it's a holiday weekend, it's summer break. A lot of the kids aren't there. So I reached out to, it's called the Rainbow City Marching Band or Rainbow City Brigade. But anyway, they have an offshoot called the Rain City Riot, and they're the band that plays in the supporter group for the Seattle Rain, which is the NWSL squad here. And they're a nonprofit organization. And I connected with them finally yesterday, and I said, hey, here's what we're looking to do. We want to make the march even bigger. Please come join us on the harbor steps, and we'll go through it together. And they've got they've got drummers, they've got horns, they got all that stuff. So hopefully they'll come through and join us. But like, just bringing, even though it is kind of a road show and a traveling circus, to be able to connect with those local communities and bring them into the fold, I think is just such a unique, cool American experience that, makes my job even easier, because I'm not in Qatar. I was the only one. I was the one drummer the entire time. And so I carried my bass drum to everything. Now I get a little bit of help. It's awesome. It's like, every match that we go here. So my next goal will be to get those people into the stadiums. I can't afford to put a marching band in our section when tickets are $2,000. But U.S. Soccer, the great thing is we negotiated every friendly match that U.S. Soccer has control of. U.S. tickets will not be more than, I think, $45 is the cap. So when that happens, I can maybe recruit some of the marching band horns and trombones and stuff like that. But also maybe there's people who are inspired by what we're doing and that want to join us no matter what. I won't have to reach out to those schools or whatnot. There'll be people that know how to play the trombone, know how to play the trumpet, know how to play the tuba, that want to come out and join us, or they have quads, right? Like Orlando City, obviously, because they're a club team, their instruments are always there. They play 18 home matches. They can coordinate all the chants together throughout an entire season. With us, you're taking this road show to every city, so you're just hoping that the people who attend know one of the 50 chants that we do or songs that we do.
Ryan, let's talk World Cup.
Okay.
All right. So you've attended all the U.S. games so far.
Mm-hmm.
What has stood out to you most about this World Cup in comparison to Qatar?
It's the amount of U.S. fans in a football stadium. I mean, I've never seen this before. This is wild. We're so used to being the Outlaws, right? We're having that small little section of when we're playing larger teams like we played Copa America, right? We didn't have that level of support. It was just here, right? And so that has been, I would say, the coolest thing that I've seen. And then also the every tailgate march into the stadium has had its own unique flavor. And even post-match, we're creating traditions as we go. Like, everyone talks about, creating culture. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to be in the trenches. You got to be doing it. You got to be on the front lines. You can't just wake up and go on Twitter and be like, oh, I think we should do a stripe out. There'd be nothing more cool than to do like a college football style stripe out.
I saw that recently. Yeah.
If people want to do it, it'd be awesome. I don't think we're there yet as a soccer nation. I think people want to wear their $200 Pulisic jersey that they got before the World Cup, right? Certainly we did it in Chicago, but that took a sponsor and little flags and doing all that. With this, it's a little too late to organize all of that. And also there's certain stadium regulations that as a bureaucracy we're up against, right? We can't do tifo and everything like that. Now, moving forward, we may have more time for U.S. matches to do stuff like that, and I think that would be neat. The problem is that we need butts and seats, and we haven't had that level of support, traditionally, unless it's a qualifier for the World Cup, and we're playing mostly in smaller MLS stadiums, right? So, but again, I'm not poo-pooing the idea, because I think you have to grow and you have to evolve as a supporter culture. And some of these ideas are cool, and we shouldn't just be like, well, no, there's no way we can do that. In America, there's this idea in the sense of we can do anything we put our mind to. We just need people, enough like-minded individuals to make it happen. So why can't we do this, right? Why can't we do that? This World Cup is probably not going to happen, but but maybe who knows? Maybe maybe we do more themed type events in the supporter section. We do more widespread stadium tifo. That would be amazing. I mean, that would be the dream, right? And for me not to have to do it all, right? Or the handful of people behind the scenes that no one recognizes, but I mean, they pour all their free time into this when they're not spending time with family or working or whatnot. So I'm just a small part of a handful of individuals that have really excelled and poured their heart into organizing the level of effort that's happening here. This is not U.S. soccer. This is volunteers, people putting, a lot of times we're putting it on our own credit cards and just hoping we get reimbursed, or we make enough, we sell enough t-shirts, or we get some sponsorships to help out with this. Right. So that's what a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that it's I think a lot of people think because a lot of, like we say, a lot of maybe NFL teams, basketball teams, and in college football, there is that support. So they're like, oh, these guys must be getting paid to do it, or they must be getting money to do it. No, this is straight out of your guys' pocket. This is this is for the love.
Well, I am my buddy's brother on his Marriott, because he works for Marriott. I'm his brother, so I get the Marriott discounts where I go. And then we split hotel rooms or Airbnbs, and then I fly on points.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the reality of the situation. So a lot of, and again, I'm fortunate enough to do that. A lot of people aren't, so I'm not, I'm not discounting that, but I think if you want something bad enough, you're going to be willing to do it. And again, hopefully we inspire enough people to want to do that. The other thing that I'll point out about this World Cup that's different than others is the country rallying back around the team and starting to be okay with who we are again. You talk about NBA and NFL. I don't want to be another PA system sport. Does that make sense? I don't want to be told when it's time for me to yell or cheer or anything like that. Certainly people are like, well, why don't you play Enter Sandman like they do in West Virginia or Penn State or whatever, or why don't you sing Tom Petty between the third quarter and the fourth quarter? Hydration breaks, won't back down. And I'm like, because that's the Gators atmosphere. That's what they do. Now, are there some things that we can borrow and be inspired by? Certainly. Like, I've got some ideas, but I think the ideas need to be a hybrid, right? You need to do things that, in soccer, you can't have the PA system. We can't just play music, right? That just doesn't happen. Like in basketball or MLB or NFL, there's breaks. So there has to be that maintenance of the supporter section. For me, one of our chants that we do that gets the entire stadium going is the Terminator chant. I don't know if it's a bump, 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 bum, and then you do the two claps, you do US, right? And it's the Terminator theme. How cool would it be if during the walkouts, every US soccer game, they turned on the Terminator theme, right? So you have the hybrid of the PA system doing that dun 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 dun, like that intimidated gladiator style drum beat, but you also have the supporter section doing the drums alongside the music, and you have an entire stadium clapping along, going U.S. dun, 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 U.S. Right? And then at the end of the match, certainly throw on Country Roads. It's not my favorite, but okay, cool, right? And you can do some pregame songs and stuff like that and get people jazzed up, but you can't just throw away an entire supporter section, or because while you may not agree that our chants are very good, the reality is the reason that chants sound better in other countries is because we don't understand what the fuck they're saying.
That's true. And
The
they're
lyrics,
united, the unity behind it, right?
It's all about unity.
They're all doing it. They're all doing it.
If you translated their chants, it's the same shit, same shitty lyrics, but they don't give a fuck. They don't worry about what the internet's going to think of them. They just do it, and they do it in unison, and it's a cool thing. So, we also know that I have to simplify all of our chants. Like, we've got some complicated ones that's never going to catch on, unfortunately, as much as we want to. So you got to keep things to a lot of grunting, right? Or making sound like, oh, like gorillas, right?
Yeah.
And then throw a USA, a tagline at the end. But all of it is really centered around creating the energy and the vibe for me. And it's also having a drum line and a band that execute it well, because I've learned that when you have great musicians, when you have a good drum line, that vibe is what carries the section forward. It's not the chants, it's not the lyrics, it's the vibe, and are people enjoying that? And then there is truly, I believe, a transfer of that to the fans. We did a 13-minute Vamos Estados Unidos in San Francisco after Tillman scored. 13 minutes.
That's a long time.
And you're bringing so we're doing things like, we've got all the drums and trumpet going, then we'll bring it down to just a cappella, then we'll slowly build it back up and then explode again and then bring it back down. So like there's an almost like an art to it, but you're feeling it. Part of the reason I wear sunglasses in the stadium, I know this is nerdy, but part of the reason I wear sunglasses is most of the time my eyes are closed. I'm trying to feel what and hear what the other drums are doing, what the trumpet's doing. I'm looking around. So I don't want like that camera on me and see me like doing this thing, so that's just a little insider information there. But and then, like I said, after we were in Levi Stadium, or San Francisco Bay Area Stadium, in the concourse for 30 minutes after the game, chanting, drumming, all around hype circle. And those memories, certainly people will remember the Tillman goal, but what they'll talk about when they go home to their friends and their family is that experience of chanting and being on the concourse with all these Americans. And it's been so long, I think, as a country, that we've been able to all rally around something positive, that that I'm not discounting that we have problems as a country and we can always be better. But isn't it cool to see everyone come together for something that represents the best of us? You look at the makeup of our team. Most of them are immigrants.
Yeah.
Or are only here because of birthright citizenship. Right? Which is the promise of America. Bring us your best and we'll ensure that you'll make it. Right? We'll provide a lifestyle for you. If you saw what what Ballo said after the match, the fact that he was shaking the referee's hands, and he said, listen, while I may disagree with it, I'm still going to show the next generation behind. I'm not going to be a spoiled brat, right? I'm going to stand up, and this is the decision. I need to man up. I'm going to take responsibility for it. That's the America that I grew up with. Yeah. That's the idea of that. And so I think, and I hope, that's why people are falling in love with this team and this moment right now, when we needed it the most. And so if they make a movie about this, Certainly, I want Russell Crowe to play Pochettino.
It has to be. I mean,
It has to be. It has to be.
No, it has to be Russell Crowe.
Yeah, it has to be
has to
Russell
be.
Crowe.
It has to be.
So we make the big heads of, so we'll have some big heads that we carry to the march. And I made one of Pochettino in Gladiator
Oh, I
uniform.
love it.
And I made one of just Russell Crowe as Pochettino, like in the USA stuff.
That's
So we have some big heads of that. But yeah, no, I think when people make a movie about this, I think they'll talk about like how divided the country was up until this point, and now it's giving people a reason to believe again. And you know, it's just it's a hopefully this is a turning point and an inflection point to greater things, and it shows what we can do and what can, when we believe in something that doesn't make me hate my neighbor, right?
Absolutely.
It's so cool. It's neat. And to be part of
the unity is so important, and not just in soccer itself, but as a country, like you say. And what I've noticed about our country and what makes it so amazing is that something like this can unite. Sport it does unite the country.
Yes.
Sport has always united the country.
Right.
The worst things in the world could be happening, but sport, the World Cup in general, unites countries, not just our country,
Sure.
but all countries. And no, you've seen USA versus Paraguay at SoFi Stadium. You've seen USA versus Australia at Lumen Field in Seattle. USA versus Turkey back at SoFi Stadium. And of course, most recently, USA versus Bosnia and Herzegovina at Levi Stadium in the Bay Area. You talked about everybody coming out after that Bosnia game and spending that time there, and just the energy, the environment, the culture. Out of all those stadiums you've been to so far, what has been the most electric environment? Was that the most electric environment that you've seen so far?
The most electric environment from kickoff to the final whistle was Seattle, for
Seattle.
sure. I will say that the Paraguay match was awesome as well in our section, right? Because we didn't know what to expect. And then you go up 4-1. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah.
But again, we were in the 300 sections, but everyone in the 300 section in Seattle was singing and chanting with us.
I love it.
And the fact that like we just dominated that entire match. I mean, it was like boots on throat, right? It really truly was an atmosphere that part of me is glad, like I'm on the fence. I really enjoyed I don't know how I'm going to top that, guys. I don't know. What can we do in even more than that? We reached the mountaintop. Right?
Yeah.
We've climbed Mount Everest. Now you're asking me to climb it again? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, we can go to Atlanta, right? Where expectations aren't so high. In SoFi, there was this, going back to SoFi was good in that LA game 1 is where a lot of those viral videos came out of, like, oh, they're stealing the jump for the USA from the Netherlands. No, fuck you, dude. We've been doing that shit since like 2007, right? Like that's been, the pogo has been around forever, right? But people were clowning on us. I was like, fuck it, suck it, Portnoy. Like, we're gonna like show you what we can do. So like for me, that was my goal. I was like, I'm gonna make the march even better than what it is. We've got 2 games behind us. Like, now people are interested. It's gonna be a party. We got nothing to lose. We don't care about the outcome of the game. We're gonna make it a party, and we fucking made it a party. And so the atmosphere out of the game, and even in the stadium, even though we ended up losing, it was still fun. It was still great. So there was something to improve upon. I don't know how I'm gonna improve upon Seattle. So all I'm hoping for is a similar level of atmosphere. Now, the knockout rounds, as you're aware of, is a completely different game, right? Like it's going to be more tense. And when a stadium is tense, they tend not to participate because they're too focused on the game.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I guess I'm kind of glad that we're up in the 300 sections with all this, I wouldn't say the true supporters, but the people who bought the cheap seats, right? The people who are like typically are, and in my experience, it's been the ones that travel the most for U.S. soccer, so they know the stuff. And plus, Seattle's usually a soccer city. I just hope that a lot of people haven't sold their tickets to casuals, or God forbid, Belgian fans, because that's the worst. Can we get like, listen? Here's the thing. I want the 90th minute hooligans to start a petition that if you have a supporter section ticket, do not scalp it. Do not try to make money off of it. If you got that ticket for $400, sell it to another U.S. supporter. We have the infrastructure at AO where there's a ticket exchange where, these are trusted individuals that if you had ever had any problem with a member, we would step in. We would ensure that U.S. Soccer would never sell a ticket to that person ever again. I'm not asking you to be snitches, but let's create a culture by which you're not bankrolling your adventure. Now, if you want to go buy a hospitality ticket and resell that shit, go all day.
Yeah.
Don't do it for the supporter section. It's gross.
It makes it so hard to have that environment and that culture of knowing that we're united if people are doing that to each other. I feel it's one of those parts of this World Cup that we've talked a lot about, and it's been all over the place, is the pricing. And like you said before, unfortunately, people are paying for it, so it is feeding the beast. But it takes away from, the people who, I mean, we forget immigrants made this country, and usually it's the immigrants that came with nothing that don't have something to be able to pay but they're the loudest, they're excited, they're yelling, they're on part of it. And look, I want to go into some statistics just based on, talking about these games. And, USA versus Bosnia, I'm not sure if you know, but was the most watched U.S. soccer telecast in English language history.
Correct.
Over 24 million tuned in. In Qatar, we saw that the World Cup saw over 3.4 million attendees over 64 games. Of course, we know that with us expanding from 32 teams to 48 teams, there are going to, of course, be more attendees. But across the same number of given games, 64 games on this tournament, we had over 4.2 million attendees, breaking, of course, the record that was set by the United States back in 1994 with 3.5 million. Do you believe that makes U.S. king of World Cup nations?
I think certainly from a financial perspective, that's why people are like, oh, let's host the World Cup here every 4 years. I'm like, no, please, no. Like, can't we just enjoy this special moment in time? Because truly, honestly, I like traveling to other countries, and it's a lot cheaper. Do you know how much tickets were in Qatar for me to go to? They were like $30.
That's crazy.
Like we would buy dinner. We stayed like in an area that was right off of the subway line near the souk. It was mostly where a lot of the workers were. So it was us and the workers. Which that whole system is crazy. But they were the amazing individuals. We were the only Americans in our little neighborhood. And we got to know the local business, the people who ran the restaurants. And they would feast after every match at 2, 3 a.m. We're eating next to taxi drivers and construction workers and janitors and all that. The food was amazing, and it cost us maybe $4 a head. So we were just buying. So whenever you travel outside the country, not only do you get to see it, but it's usually a little cheaper. So I can't afford another World Cup in America, guys. I need to travel outside the country, please. But also I think if you do something of too much, it's like eating too much candy or doing too much of one thing. It doesn't become special anymore.
Right.
And certainly while I love the Copa America and I feel like the USA, it could rival the Euros if we really got our act together and figured out how to make that work.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be in the US every single time. I want it to be in a rotation. I want to go to Mexico. I want to go to Argentina. I want to go to Chile. I want to go to Colombia. Certainly we have the infrastructure, which makes it easier here, but I want to travel and experience those cultures, because once you understand and you've been with other people, there's a level of understanding that people who don't understand soccer just go and travel for it, and you'll realize that it is truly the universal language. When I went to France for a friendly after we had been ousted, went to a warm up match in 2018 in Lyon. It was a warm up for France. We were their warm up team, and I was in a lift speaking through Google Translate with my taxi driver, who was amazed that there were American fans that traveled to his country and that loved his sport as much as he did.
Yeah.
And so they started to look at Americans in a little bit different light. And obviously this is making the news now as people are falling in love with the people of America, because they're realizing we're not our politicians. We're not our government, just like they're not their government. They're not their politicians. We're equally as shitty and corrupt. But at the end of the day, soccer is a blue collar, played in neighborhoods, played, from, hardworking people. At least that's where it started. You could argue that the Premier League has gotten away with that. It's gotten corporate and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, there's kids in the neighborhoods in Brazil playing in between two sandals, right?
Yeah.
As cliche as that is, I saw it firsthand. I mean,
Yeah.
it's true. It's everything they've told you is true. So, to be able to share that same love language, even though we may not speak the same language, may not have the same cultures, the way that we support is a little bit different. There's that love for the same game it's such a cool experience, man. And I tried it. I try to spread that message everywhere I go. I'm trying
Yeah.
not to cry now. I'm
No,
trying not
I
to
mean
cry.
it's true, and I think it's unbelievable. And you bring it up, seeing the kids. That's I remember my first time going to Chile. Well, the first time I actually remembered. So my dad's from Chile, my mom's from Mexico, and at around I don't know, I think I was around 12 years old. We went to Chile, and I met my cousins for the first time, and we went to a little soccer field, which was just dirt. It wasn't a field; it was just dirt. And it was just two rocks, one on each side. But there were it was like 20 on 20, everybody in the neighborhood was playing, and that's just what it is. And, kids are playing barefoot or in sandals. Like, they don't have the ability to have cleats. I mean, we went down there with soccer balls to gift them, and it was to gift a soccer ball was like the
Huge.
greatest present in the world. It was just like, "Oh my gosh, I got a real ball, not like a old beat up hand me down. I got a brand new ball that's mine." It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Obviously U.S. Soccer knew that it was going to make a ton of money on this World Cup, right? And knew it was going to make billions of dollars just by even showing up. So I'm okay with people making money as long as it's invested back into the infrastructure. Hey, Phil. So Phil just walked by. They're getting antsy. They want to get on the road soon.
I gotcha.
So as long as that money is not just going to line the pockets of people, but is that put back into the infrastructure and maybe reducing the barrier of entry. One of the things that makes American Outlaw special, again, is our charity arm called AO Impact, where we're trying to address that problem. It's not an easy task. The infrastructure for youth sports here in America has gotten worse. I remember just joining my local Little League was, I think it was like $45 for the year my parents had to pay. Now everything is traveling teams and clubs and all of that nonsense where, it's thousands of dollars a year how many people are we leaving behind because they don't have the access to that? If you watch the documentary with Clint Dempsey, you saw the sacrifices that his family had to make. Or if you ever watched the Jay Demerit story, these are how do you, I don't know how it seems like such an insurmountable task that we almost just want to throw our hands up and just say, well, that's just what the way that it is in America. And I firmly believe that we can change it. There's a way. I don't know the answer. I don't have the answer. But I think if you get enough smart people in a room, we can address it.
Yeah, and look, we talked about 94 to now 2026, the World Cup, and how the infrastructure that the US has with its stadiums, the professional NFL stadiums, it's a reason why they can fill so many and all this kind of stuff. And of course, unfortunately, the price gouging and all this kind of stuff is another thing. But I think what makes it so special is the fact that there was such a big gap from 94 to 2026. And I think it's what's brought so many people together, be like, man, we don't know when the next time this is going to happen. We got to make the most of it, and we have
Right.
to, and you see all these foreigners coming to our country and they're loving, Chick-fil-A, they're loving the ranch, they're loving barbecue,
Yep.
they're loving, there's, and I love the fact that we are seeing people putting out those videos being like, man, the US isn't as bad as what the news says it is. The
Right.
US, the country is beautiful. The people are amazing. The food is amazing. Like all these things. So I think it's really great to see that. Now, my thing, I was just in Ecuador.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed in Ecuador, I was there for 2 weeks, and every business you walked into, the World Cup was advertised. They're not even a host nation. They've never been a host nation
Yeah.
for the World Cup. I mean,
Yeah.
even banks had World Cup trophies up, and they had the games playing. I think that the American fans are really showing out in this World Cup, which is great, whether it be in the stadiums, at FIFA Fan Fest, or even local watch parties. But how do we keep this going, after the World Cup? And I know we talked about it with the local, but how do we
Yep.
make it to where the local businesses, not just your local
Sure.
teams, become so involved and making this bigger to where it can be one of those countries
Ooh.
you walk into and you're like, man, the World Cup is going on in another country, but we know it's going on because we're seeing it here.
Yeah, that's such a unique question. It all comes down to, it's like, I don't know how you're going to get businesses around a random friendly on a Tuesday. But maybe there's, when the Gold Cup or the Nations League, when these tournaments come around, certainly I think that there's the option to do that. I think we're in a pretty cool situation in America specifically, where next year the women are going down to Brazil and the women are expected to win,
Yeah.
right? So I think if we can get these businesses like Bank of America that are investing, so, I don't know how real it is, but they're advertising that they're putting a soccer field in every public school or a certain number of public schools around the globe. I think that's a great start. But also those businesses that didn't get on board for this World Cup, maybe because the barrier of entry and the sponsorship levels were too high, can get on board for the women's, or maybe there'll be more people interested in sponsoring. I know that we're looking to see if we can get sponsorships more to help maybe subsidize the cost of traveling or make it easier. Maybe form relationships with Marriott to be the official sponsor of, the American Outlaws when we travel and get discounts on rooms,
Yeah.
so that it makes it easier to travel, because the more people that are involved in this community, they have jobs. Where do they work?
Yeah.
They come back and they be like, hey, I think, you should look into sponsoring this. So,
Yeah.
or hey, let's throw on, I work at a hotel, let's throw on the World Cup, or let's throw on this soccer tournament, so that when we go into those local businesses or in my neighborhood, it's front and center. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a start. That's just off the top of my head. That's one
Sure.
ways that you can do it and maintain the level of excitement is through the Women's World Cup next year.
Yeah, and I really want to see that, especially because, being in these foreign countries and seeing that love and that support, I really want to see it here for the US. So, look, before we wrap it up here, Ryan, I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Okay. So, 5 years from now, what do you hope people say about soccer in America after this World Cup?
It's better than any other sport outside of NFL and college football. It's the number 2 sport. That's what
All
I want
right.
people to say. I want people to be like, hey, could you believe that the men's team just won the 2030 World Cup? That's what I want people to say.
I love it. I love it. Who's more responsible for growing soccer in America, you believe? The MLS, US Soccer, or the fans?
I think it starts with the fans, and I think it starts at your local. I truly believe it starts at the local level.
Okay. What's your message to every American who's watched their first soccer match during this tournament?
Stick around. There's a lot more things there. Get involved in your local club. If you're close to a local club, go check it out. It's going to be different, and that's okay. It's going to be unique to them, to whatever team that you're at. Just go try it out. You may not like it, and that's fine. And then just come back and follow the U.S. team. Listen, it's very difficult for me to get to every Orlando City match. I just don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth, because I follow the U.S. team almost like it's my club team.
Yeah.
So I'm at every tournament, I'm at every friendly and all that kind of stuff. But find something that you can attach your fandom or your support to. It doesn't have to be necessarily your local team. Maybe you just fall in love with the national team. That's great. But fall in love with something. Maybe you fall in love with your club team and you never watch USA again. I don't care. Just as long as you're following the sport and giving back to it.
I love it. I love it. And then finally, I want you to fill in the blanks. Ready? If the United States wants to become a true soccer nation, we have to stop blank and start blank.
Stop apologizing for who we are and pretending to be something that we're not. Our culture is our culture. Stop and get off the internet. Stop. It's so weird. In our generation, my generation, which saw the formation of social media, we use social media to meet up in real life, right? We use it to organize. We used it to get out of the house. Now people use the internet to see if they want to get out of the house, right? They look and they say, well, that doesn't look like something I'd be interested in. I'm not going to even try it out. And they're missing out because it might be completely out of context or something that they don't really know. So if you're interested in it, just get out of the house. Or if you want to change, if you think the chants are shitty or whatever, don't just like post an AI chat GPT generated chant that is never going to fucking catch on. Get involved in your local club or community, figure out how things are formed, and then come out and join people in the front line. Be like, hey, this is what I think is really cool. And the best way to change anything is to be part of something. And you can't just sit at home on the couch blasting hot takes on Twitter or Instagram and expect things to change. You have to get out there and you have to do the dirty work.
I love it. And this is for anybody at home, for the viewers. Look, I just became a part of the American Outlaws this past year, and look, it's taken a long time for me to even do that, just because I've had a lot of work going on. I've been traveling and all that, but I will say this: if it wasn't the creation of the 90th Minute Hooligans, if it wasn't with my involvement with the American Outlaws and my local chapter here in Charlotte, and being at the game and viewing it the way that I did, I wouldn't have this much passion for it. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand is, if you are part of an organization, you become more passionate about it. Look, Ryan, Ulysses, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you taking time out of your travel. At the end of the day, we will do everything in our power to keep growing this. Hopefully, I'll get to see you soon at a game, maybe quarterfinal.
Yeah.
I already tried looking for the round of 16 games
Okay.
out here in Seattle, but it doesn't look like it was going to be something I can make happen. But at the end of the day, if I can make it to a quarterfinal game, hopefully even a semifinal, that,
wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be cool?
I will make that happen. I will sell something,
Yeah, my wife said that she'll come to LA if we make it to LA. So I'm really hoping that we make it to LA again.
that'll be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm gonna have to mortgage the house again, so to be able to afford this. But
Hey,
it's been really cool. Thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, man.
Again, you're a perfect example of what I just said. You're changing the culture by doing something, not just using hot takes or incentivizing negativity for clicks, right? So I applaud everything that you guys are doing. Thank you for joining the organization. And for those who, I would encourage, if there's an Outlaws chapter in your area, go hang out, see if it's the right fit. If you don't like the leadership, they're always looking for volunteers. So be the change you want to see, man. And it's your $30 gets you a t-shirt that you're wearing right there.
Right.
It gets you access to those lesser expensive tickets outside of big tournaments like FIFA and CONCACAF and Copa. And you get to meet really cool people that become family. And it's unlike any other sporting culture in America. It's really cool.
I love it. I love it. Well, you guys heard it here. Look, we'll be looking out for you on those the marches. I'll be looking out for the videos. I'll clip those videos in as much as I possibly can.
Awesome.
Share it with the world because I love what you guys are doing. I love the energy. I love the fact that we're building that culture here in the U.S. So, thanks to everybody at home for tuning in. Join us next time for some more chaos culture in soccer. We appreciate you, Ryan. You have a great one. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome to Touchline Talks. No tactics, no filters.